It was 3 years after Hurricane Katrina and my father had just completed the renovations to our family home in the lower 9th Ward of New Orleans. To give some background, the lower 9th Ward is where the water first entered into the city and ground zero for the flooding. My family, which consisted on my parents and fraternal grandparents, all were rescued and shipped to Houston, Texas in 2008. My parents were constantly fighting about moving back to New Orleans. My dad, who was a huge man, argued that he had fixed the house and we all could move back to New Orleans. His point was that getting a new 30-year home loan made no sense because our family home had been paid for already. My mother argued that the city was not safe and was still abandoned. She fought all school year and finally relented before summer. I was dealing with my own problems in Houston, new girl in the new school dealing with the issues that all 15-year-old girls deal with. I didn't like the people and wanted to move home. So when my mom said yes, I was excited. As school came to an end, we started packing and we moved back to New Orleans. When we arrived in my old neighborhood, I realized that I would have been better off in Houston. There were only 9 occupied houses on my entire street, which ran for at least 3 miles in both directions. There were trucks and construction workers everywhere. People who decided not to come back had boarded up their homes or simply just left them. The air outside smelled like mold and mildew. The overall feeling was creepy. The first week things went well as both my parents were home all the time. It was summer and there was not much to do but watch TV and listen to music. I would spend a lot of time in our backyard listening to music and just laying in the grass looking up at the sky. It took my mind off all the destruction around me. One evening I was laying in the yard listening to my iPod and I kept getting the feeling I was being watched. Our house had a wooden fence with vertical boards and it was around 7 feet tall. I sat up and looked around but didn't see anything, so I just laid back down. The next day my dad started work with the New Orleans Sherrif Department and he was up before dawn and out the house. My mom was dying of boredom, so we left at 10 a.m. to drive to the mall on the other side of town. When we returned that evening, there was a red pickup truck parked in the driveway of the abandoned house across the street. I just figured the family had finally decided to renovate their house. My mom and I walked in and I went straight out the back door to the backyard. As I walked out the back door, I saw what looked like someone walking along the outside of the back fence. I could see the silhouette as they slowly moved along the fence line. I pulled my earbuds out to listen, and that is when I heard footsteps from in front of me and to the right of me. I started freaking out and the hair on my neck stood up. Then a crumbled up piece of paper came flying over the fence from my right. I turned around and walked back into the house, locking the door. I told my mom someone was outside behind the house and we both went out to the yard and found the paper. It was a coupon for a local grocery store. Someone had written, "I want to fuck you." I thought to myself, what the fuck? My mom quickly called my dad. This was the confirmation she needed that the area was not safe, and of course an argument started. I looked out of the front window and the red truck was gone. The next day my dad left home later than normal and I remember him checking all the windows before he left the house. That was the first time he did that and it really freaked me out. Around 1:30 p.m. my mom got bored and said she would be right back. She was going to the store. She told me to lock up and stay inside the house. As she closed the front door, I noticed the red truck again parked in the driveway across the street. I went to the kitchen to fix the snack plate, trying not to freak out. I had just finished laying out my cheese and crackers on the plate when there was a banging on the front door, not a knock but a huge banging. It scared me and I froze in place. Then I heard muffled voices at the door in a language I didn't understand. The banging kept going for a few minutes, then the doorbell rang. At this point I'm tripping out thinking, who bangs on the door then rings the bell? I moved to the door and look out the door curtains. It was 2 older looking white guys. One was looking at the side of the house and the other is staring right at me. He says, "Open the door, you're not safe. Open the door. Open the door." I said to myself, fuck no, I am not opening the door for you. I turned to get my cell phone and that's when I really lost it. There were 3 men standing at my back door, which was made of glass, looking at me. I thought to myself, what the fuck is going on in my life to deserve this kind of bullshit? As I rushed to the kitchen to get my cell phone, I looked into the eyes of the man closest to the back door. His look was that of a predator. There was evil in his eyes. I grabbed my cell phone and dialed 911. When I turned to look at the back door, the men seemed to be searching for something in the yard. Then it hit me, they were looking to break the glass. In that moment I remembered the eyes of the man at the front door and how he looked so worried. The 911 operator began talking and I frantically explained what was going on. He said, "Stay in the house, the police are on the way." He asked me to stay on the line. I looked to the back door again and the man who I locked eyes with was walking from the middle of the yard. I could see him well in the sunlight. He was Latino with a tattoo on his neck. He was very muscular. As he walked towards the door, the other two men moved out his way as if they were scared of him. This all happened so quickly, but I knew at that moment I had to go out the front door. When I opened the door, the two men outside pulled me out of the house and slammed the door closed. I started hyperventilating. I panicked and dropped my cell phone. I just knew I was about to be kidnapped or worse. One guy was on his phone, the other was pulling me across the street to the abandoned house. My legs went weak and I could not walk or stand. As I stumbled into the house, one of them handed me the phone. It was a 911 operator. She explained that these two men called when they saw three other men jumping my fence and that I should stay with them till police arrived. I hung up the phone and called my dad. He beat the police to the house by 10 minutes. He went through the house with his gun and found that they had broken in the back door and went through my room. He found that both my mom's and my underwear were missing and that the house was trashed. The two men who were across the street turned out to be from Sweden. They were volunteers working on the property for a non-profit organization. The police did a door-to-door search of the abandoned houses and found the three guys living in one of the houses a few blocks to the north. They found pictures of me and my mom along with my panties in the house. The officer said there were sperm stains on the underwear. Needless to say, I did not spend much time alone in that house for a few years until people started moving back into the neighborhood. The whole situation left me traumatized, and till this day I have trouble being alone.
Do you want more stories? We have more for your listening pleasure. Feel free to comment, and please subscribe to the channel to show your support.